Edwards over the last 10 years or so about user-defined objects, or UDOs. And what Oracle has done is Oracle has said, hey, I need to develop something within the infrastructure tools of JD Edwards so that organizations, they can turn around and they can update and manage, and they can do things, to get the most out of their software without having to worry about going to IT and all these other places to get the work done. And we want to make it simpler, regardless of the platform or database that people use or the hardware. We want to be able to give tools to people to allow them to get a rapid time to value and lower their cost of ownership, but more importantly, to be able to configure and personalize the software the way people need to do their job, therefore providing scalability so that as your organization grows or people move department to department, they have that technology that they can turn around and configure things and make them work the way they work. So you always hear about user-defined objects, or UDOs. Those are the key components that you as an organization need to let your users absorb so that they can provide and get to this new UXOne digital experience. So there are many of them, and Dan and I have been doing webinars one-off for each one. Today, we're doing it on form personalization / form extension. Now, we're going to concentrate on form extensions. However, with what Dan is going to show you, the form personalization works the same exact way, the way you would go in and move things around and add things and all that other good stuff. The only difference is this. A form personalization is going to take the delivered application and business view and data that Oracle has developed, and it's going to let you personalize that. What the form extension does is it goes one step further. It says, well, I'm going to take what Oracle delivered for me, and if there's certain things that are, quote, hidden, I'm going to be able to now expose them and take them and use them. And now I'm going to apologize up front because some of this might get a little, quote unquote, deep for some of you, but it's an important thing to know when we talk about form extensions versus form personalizations. It's important to understand JD Edwards, the software, and what it is. So if you look back, right now, JD Edwards is on application release 9.2.5. That's the latest update. And it's on tools release 9.2.5.2. Now, both of those, i.e. the application level, is supported through December of 2031. And the nice part about it is Oracle is in this mindset of continuous innovation, which means they constantly are making changes. They're constantly providing you the changes, and it's up to you to take those so that you can stay current with what Oracle has out there and not get back into this big bang project kind of thing. We want you now, a lot of our upgrades are done within 2 to 3 weeks. So think about that. In the past, it would take months to do an upgrade. Now people are able to do upgrades in 2 to 3 weeks and stay current and leverage all those things, because code currency is not continuous innovation. What continuous innovation is Oracle is continually delivering things, but you as a user need to adopt them and put them into your business. So as Oracle is delivering all this new functionality and features and things of that nature on a regular basis, if you don't take those on a regular basis, analyze those on a regular basis, incorporate them into your organization on a regular basis, then you're really not a continuous innovation company. Simply taking them and leaving them on the shelf is doing you no good. And what do I mean by this? Let's just look at UDOs, and let's just look at form personalizations and form extensions. Form personalizations came back out in October of 2015. And you can see the release levels, the tools releases, where there were enhancements made to those. And then you can see in late 2016, early 2017, there were still more enhancements made to form personalizations. Well, come the late 2017 to early 2018, not only were more enhancements made to personalization, but form extensions now came into play. And then in 2018 and 19, more enhancements were made to both of them. Going into late 2019, 2020, 3 tools releases had enhancements made. Now, in the latest, you can see right now on tools 925, more changes were made to extensions. So it's not good for your organization to simply say, hey, I'm on tools 9205. Well, if you're on 9205, look at all these other things that you're missing out on. So let's get into the understanding of what we're talking about. In J.D. Edwards, I'm going to talk to the fact that we have a sales order. And when Tom buys something, Tom buys different items at different quantities. They have different prices. They have all this other good stuff. Well, that one order has multiple lines of items on it. Each one of those is a order detail line, and it's stored in this thing called a table, sometimes referred to as a file. Now, if you look at the delivered structure of that table from J.D. Edwards, these are all the fields that are out there. These are all the fields where pieces of information are being stored. And even though they're called a field, sometimes people say or refer to them as a column. So every time an order comes in, a bunch of these different columns are being populated with information. If you notice the 2 on the left with the red boxes, those are fields that are updated with information, but yet when you look at a application or screen, you don't see the fields on the screen. And these are the ones we're going to use in the example of showing you how we can move things in. Now, that's not all of them. These additional fields are still part of that table. And you can see that there's 2 more boxes on the bottom that are highlighted. We're going to talk all 4 of those when we do the exercise. But I want to show you the ones on the right. 10 years ago, when people started complaining to Oracle, I need to put other information in my order table. I need to see different things. Well, Oracle 10 years ago said, well, let me give you some user reserve fields. Let me give you fields where a user can put in a reference number or some other dollar amount or whatever. Now, the problem with Oracle doing that is while it was okay, they had the application or the program wasn't retrieving that and showing you that on a screen. So users still had to get IT involved, and IT still had to develop an application and a view for you to see that other information. Well, that kind of customization is what the form extension is alleviating. Because now, if you think about it, I had my table, I had all those fields. Oracle developed this application for me. The application has multiple versions, but what do I see? I only see what Oracle decided they wanted me to see. Well, they did that by creating these things called a form. And the ones we use most often are the ones called a find browse form, where we go in and we say, oh, let me see order SO1234. And the screen comes back and it gives me a lot of data and it gives me a lot of information. Maybe somebody says, well, you know what? I don't know what item I want. And they click on that little visual assist, that little magnifying glass. Well, that pops up a search and select form where I can put in some information and it shows me some values, right? The other one we use a lot is what's called that fix inspect form. That's where we actually go in and we add information or change information. So we have a table. That table has fields. Those fields have data. we write an application that is utilizing a kind of form. And now what we need to say is, we're not looking at all of the data, we're only looking at some of the data. So now what Oracle does is, if you're in an application and you go into the upper right and hit that little question mark, and you'll get that pop up and you click on About, what that does is that says, okay, you're in an application called 4210, you're running a version that says ZJDE01, and you're looking at a subset of data from a form called 4210E. Now, this part I just showed you is very important when we talk about things like developing a Cafe One page or developing a composed page. This is how you find out what application, what version, and what subset of data you want to use when you develop these things. So I turn around, I have this application, I have the version, but now what? Now I have multiple versions. Why? Because within that, J.D. Edwards says, you tell me how you want this to work. You tell me how you want it to function. You tell me for all of these versions, you want this one to be for a quote. You want this one to be for a direct ship. You want this to be for something else. All of these processing options control how the software works for you. And the reason I'm getting into this is to show you this thing. For sales order entry, you have X number of tabs that you need to fill out for processing options. Some of those tabs, like your default tab, might let you put in a discrete order type or might let you put in a discrete status. But there's other ones like these two, transfers and interbranch. And I'm showing you these because in our exercise today, when you filled out this processing option for transfers and you put in a 1 and said, I want to activate it, what the system knows is when that program was running for that version, it knew it was a transfer order. So in one of those fields early on that I showed you, the system went in and it indicated that it was a transfer order. So now think about it. Did I need to create a document type called ST for transfers? Back in the day, the answer was yes, because I could never get at this field without doing a modification. Now that I can do a form extension, I don't care if it's still an SO, because now I can pull in this field and say, show me everything with a 1 that indicates it's a transfer order. And the same holds true for interbranch. So I'm telling you this to show you how robust J.D. Edwards has gotten. 10 years ago, when we would consult and say, well, you really need to create different document types because that's the only way to truly get at it from a screen, you really don't need that anymore because now there's another way to do it. That's the robustness of J.D. Edwards. So putting it all together, I had a table that had multiple columns. I had an application that used the business view to take some of those fields / columns. And then for each one of those, I have a version with different processing options to say, hey, do different things. Sounds complex, but believe it or not, if you just take a breath and step back and think about it, it's like building a pyramid. It all makes sense. Now, to add insult to injury, I gave you an example of just that table 4211. You have a concept of joining tables, i.e. putting them together and making them bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Well, that's what Oracle did with UXOne roles. For UXOne roles, they created this view called Open Sales Inquiry, where it combined 4 different tables. So now instead of 300 fields, I might have 600. And think about what you can do and how you can get at information now. Again, it's only the beginning. Oracle is investing and making things more and more easy for people to get at information and to do their job. Now, all of this is done through what's called form design. That's a developer doing things. The latest tools release 924. You can move things around for your form controls like your group boxes and tabs. That's form personalization. For form extensions now, the first bullet is what's important. Anything that a developer created for that application that you don't quote see, you can now go at, get, and bring back into your form. And when you do that, you can have it exposed for everybody. Everybody can see it. Everybody can use it. So if you look at the last bullet, you no longer need customization. You no longer need, a developer to maintain and modify something. You can do it all yourself. And like any other UDO, it belongs to you. You can share it or you could keep it. So early on, I showed you those 4 fields: primary, last supplier, buyer number, applied commission. The one I talked about was that transfer, direct ship, intercompany flag. You'll see that when you look at that field that was hidden before and nobody ever knew about it, when you set that processing option and it was a direct ship order, that field is populated with a 2. If it was an intercompany order, it's populated with a 3. So right away now, you could expose that field and you can see the same thing versus having a SD versus ST versus whatever. So with that, Mr. Dan, I'm going to pop it over to you.
All right. Okay.
All
Brian,
right.
first of all, that's probably the worst picture ever of me. So I don't know why you guys keep using that one.
Well, that's because I want to make myself look better, Dan. That's why.
Oh, there you go. That's fine.
All right.
Okay.
Purely selfish.
All right. I think I'm sharing it now.
You are good.
Okay. So a couple things. One, to follow up on what Tom was saying. We had a client years ago that they didn't follow good procedure. They actually created a transfer order from the SO screen. They didn't have their doc type locked down. So they went to enter an order. They just changed the doc type to ST. Well, obviously that didn't create a transfer order, and they couldn't figure out why it wasn't transferring. So that's how where some of these things are going to show. Anyway, so let's go into and show you a quick and dirty. This is going to be simple. Let me get this thing up here. Very simple how to do this. Let me get into my order entry. So what the really nice thing is, and again, I said this to Tom, I don't know, about 1 million times now. I almost wish I was still a user, because my God, all the things that we can do now used to be an act of Congress to get approval, to get a programmer to change a field on a screen, and it's just nuts. So if you guys are not at 9.2, hopefully this will help push you over, get to 9.2 and get you upgraded. If you are at 9.2 and you don't know what some of these UXOnes are and you were kind of worried about them, don't be. They're very innocuous. They don't really affect your time or performance at all. Someone asked the question earlier if it affected performance. No, I don't think any of these UXOnes do, except for maybe one view reporting. Some of that, if you run those things wide open, that can certainly bring your performance down quite a bit. So anyway, so what Tom had mentioned is, the ability to add like a vendor, which is not the vendor preferred supplier of an item, maybe the buyer number, all these things that are not really on the line here in your inquiry. We can add stuff to it. So just doing a quick and dirty here. We'll just do a little SO here. We'll look up. We're gonna go up here to the up in the top right corner. There's a few icons. If you don't have some of these on your 9.2 environment, they probably have not been activated. That's not a big deal. Just CNC needs to activate them because everything comes locked down when you get to 9.2. So this little guy here with the little plus here, the form extension, the plus. We're going to use that guy today, form extension. The other guy next to it right there is personalizing the form. Again, if we do that, I'm going to click that real quick. That's to be able to move these fields around to, places and do things with them, right? All cool. We're not going to do that necessarily right now, but we're going to get into the form extension, which is a little bit different. When I click form extension, there will be no saving it as a version per se. It's going to use this version that I'm using. This guy right here is going to put these fields that we're going to add on all of them. Now, again, we either share that or we keep it to yourself. Doesn't matter, whichever way you want to go. But as a user, if you have the ability to UXOnes, you can change these as to your liking. Okay. So one of the things that we wanted to do is we have this form, which Tom showed you already. This is what this form was. It's the inquiry. And you have the ability to, if there was multiple business views, you could grab a different business view there. But you can do either the form being the top section or the grid being the bottom section. And we're going to do grid because we want to put things in our bottom section so we can actually, do inquiries and find them, right? So if you notice, you can either look at things by the description or by data dictionary item. We have it sorted by data dictionary item. Makes it nice and easy if you know the field names. If you don't know the field names, of course, you can do it the other way. You can also search up here. So I want to look at SO11 I'm looking for. See if it shows up. I think this is case sensitive also. There it is. So here's my SO11. So these are some of the things. This is the transfer direct ship intercompany flag thing. So I'm going to bring that, if you notice, I'm going to slide this to the end. It's starting to bring these columns into the grid. So let's go back up. I want to get rid of this here. I want to do the ANBY, which is the buyer number. I want to bring that in because that's hidden. It's not shown here, but guess what? Now it is. We have it. ACOM, I'll bring that in. And also my vend, which is down there at the bottom.
Remember, that's the one that was preferred buyer. Dan was in the middle.
Yep. Yeah. See, there it is. See, it's weird. It didn't seem like it was in alphabetical order, but it is. Okay, so I've got these guys here, and it's very simple. All I have to do is say save. Boom. They're now in there. They're now in part of the system. I'm going to go exit out of here. It's going to bring back my screen. I'm going to slide all the way to the end. And there they are. There's the guys I just added. So again, if I wanted to do something and put them in a different view, I can certainly do that. I can get rid of a bunch of things here and get rid of a bunch of stuff. I'm just grabbing stuff willy-nilly. So and save that. So now my Dan view is here. Stuff is still there. Again, I can move it up the front or not, whatever. But I can also say to myself, all right, so what do we have out here for transfer orders? Do a quick survey, inquiry. Guess what? There's all my twos. What is my two? I can do an F1 here. It tells me two is my direct ship orders. So, so to answer the question, like what happened to the other client, I mean, how did we figure it out? Well, we had to go to the data dictionary to figure it out, right? We had to go use the inquiry from the data browser, not data browser, and find out why these STs weren't transfer orders. Well, that's why, because that flag wasn't even clicked. But now I can actually do the inquiry right here on my inquiry screen. So I don't have to go to the data browser. If people don't want you to use data browser because it's a hog, okay, that's fine. You can still do it yourself as a user. So it really makes things simple and easy. And that's it. I mean, that's how hard it is to do a form extension. It's not hard. Now the problem is once you have one, if I wanted to go create another one, it's the same one, but I have to edit it. I can't have a different version of it per se, right? So it brings up the same information already selected, but maybe I don't want some of these guys here. I can get rid of them. So if I go back to my grid, which I have a grid, come on, grid. I said, you know what? I really don't need apply commission. Bam. I'm gonna look. It's gone now. Apply commission is gone. So it keeps all these little X's here for all the things that we've selected. So it knows that those are guys. And I can actually go here and say, I don't need buyer either. Boom, gone. So that's how easy it is to add this stuff. Now, it also works if you are actually entering information in. So another scenario I've had Well, we had people that were in ship confirm, they're not using transportation, but they had some specific things they needed to capture at ship confirm. You could bring in a user reserve field, you can bring in a user reserve code, you can bring in anything you want. And while they're actually transacting, they can update that code with a, the scanner, with whatever they're doing, right? So, think about it. If I had to expose a field and had to be able to process something with it, oh my God, it was like an act of Congress, right? And to get the programming approved and to get the budget, all that stuff. Now there's no budget. You just do it. You can do it. Now, does that mean everybody in the world can do this? Some of these probably not. Most of them, yes. I think most people will have access to most of the UDOs. This is a pretty important one to be sure you want people to have as well. But given the right circumstances, it shouldn't be a big deal at all. So, Tom, is there anything else I'm missing on that I should talk about?
No, Dan, I think you hit it. I mean, the long and short of it is, as you were saying and as you showed, a lot of companies, they're using things like, some freight fields or whatever that will be nice for them to be able to see and act upon. That's the kind of thing that you're looking to do here. Now, there's been numerous questions so far asked about, well, what happens if the field is not in the business view? It's as I said before, right? You have to understand J.D. Edwards. J.D. Edwards has a table of data, and that table can be the singular table, or it could be a join table, meaning you're taking a bunch of different tables together. But then you have a business view that's written over that. And that business view is only taking certain of those fields. When you write an application, your application is written over that business view. Therefore, if the business view doesn't contain the column, even though it's hidden, you're not going to be able to get at it. So, if you think about it, you say to yourself, okay, I have the 4211 table that has 300 fields. Why can't I write one business view over all 300 fields? Well, you could. And then in which case, somebody be able to pick any one you want. But back in the day, you have to understand, J.D. Edwards has been around now for 45 years, right? Back in the day when it was developed and initially, set up, people weren't thinking like that. People were thinking, well, I have 300 fields, but they only need to see 150. So let me chunk it out and only have 150 and show them what they want. And that's why customizations happen, because all of a sudden people are trying to, pick and choose and everything else. And there is a law of diminishing returns here. If you join 2, 3, 4 tables together and in effect had 1,200 fields, that is a little ludicrous as far as performance is concerned and everything else, right? So there is a fine line between what's good and what's bad. And when I showed you those user reserve fields back in the day, that was J.D. Edwards' answer to customers saying, you don't have enough fields for me to put information in. The fields really aren't what I need, and you've used them all for other things and I can't get at them. I need some more. So there is a fine line. So for those of you that are asking questions about, well, what happens if I don't see it? You may not see it in that view. You might not see it in the W4210E view, but maybe the W4210A view does have it. But again, that view was written for a different application, which is doing different things. So there still might be a little bit of stuff you need to do with your development team to maybe get you what you need.
Yeah, and one of the things I did not bring up is you can also manage exits using that too. You can actually add your form and row exits from here as well.
Mm-hmm.
If you add a row, you have to have something that says you're going to grab me the item number of something or something. So again, if I had a supplier and an item, maybe I want to bring that over and exit to show me what is the order for that, any orders for that item.
Mhm.
So nice way to do the exits. Again, form doesn't really care about anything. It just takes you wherever you want to go. But that's also really cool and fun to play around with. So again, think of the things you'd like to do. If you got to get out, get in, go somewhere else, just click the same thing, go to the row and click it.
Yep.
So again, it's some stuff that makes your life a whole lot easier. And again, I almost wish I was a user. I'll say
Well,
that because
now there's a question that just popped up, Dan.
okay.
That is a germane question when it comes to all UDOs, user-defined objects, right? A user-defined object theoretically is a modification to the software, right? And the question is, well, what happens? Dan made all these changes in production. Now, all of a sudden, a developer goes into this P4210 job, the form 4210E, and they make changes, blah, 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 and then promote it up. What will happen? Well, this object is a custom object, right? That's owned by Dan. There should not be a change. But the more important answer to that is this. You have to treat UDOs like any other customization. And what I mean by that is this. When I talked about continuous innovation, and I talked to you as an organization, taking and evaluating what Oracle is positioning to you, you as a company should take all of those in your PY environment or DV environment. And even though Tom doesn't have access in production, you should give Tom access in development so Tom can turn around and Tom can see if it's worthwhile and if they should do something with this new enhancement. And if that is the case, it should be treated just like any other development effort. Tom should make all of his changes in development and you should promote them up through your environment. In other words, your change control process should still work the same way. You should not just randomly make all these changes in production. Now, granted, there is a way that if you did, we can, quote, save them and not override them, but it's still, in my opinion, not the best practice to use within your organization.
Yep. Oops.
All right. So, Dan, I see you going crazy over there. I don't know.
Yeah, I can't remember that. Can't remember the name of the screen. Anyway, I was going to take you to the security screen there, but
Yeah.
anyway, so yeah, and it's again, it's own. It's like using a grid format. Like if you create a grid format, think of it the same way. That grid is yours, right? Unless you share it with other people, then it's other people's. So when you share these columns, grid formats, it's the same way. It's treated the same exact way.
Dan, did you, just out of curiosity, did you add anything to the header? Just to show?
Yeah, I did for a second, but I just
Yeah, just so they can see that, the field. Now, here's the other thing you need to understand. Not every field is applicable to both the header and the grid.
All right.
You with me? So there's some fields that can only be brought onto the header because what is the header? The header says for every single row, these values are the same for every single row. But yet at a row level, a thing like a buyer number could be different, right? So you just have to understand to step back and just say to yourself, how is JDE really structured? How is it really running? And now you actually can see through this exercise Dan is doing how the normal everyday user, when we use the term like citizen developer and becoming more of a quote unquote developer person, because now they have the tools that allow them to do these things that normally only a developer could do. So now the end user community has to start thinking more of how is the back end working? What is it all made up of?
Yeah. So here's the thing: you can actually bring a field in. It doesn't let me do the QBE on it, but I can't put in something there and select it. It didn't seem to filter, but you get the idea. You could put it in there. And I don't know if that's necessarily, there's something I'm missing on that, but
Yeah.
it's there.
But this is what I would strongly suggest to everyone. Like Dan said, UDOs are delivered locked down. So that screen I showed you with all the enhancements that were made in the tools releases, all those enhancements, when they get delivered to your organization, nobody can see them. Your administrator has to allow you access, and it has to allow you access to either develop them or use them and change them. And then what ends up happening is, you as a user have to determine which one should I or shouldn't I be using. So just because you say to yourself, well, we're on tools 9235, and you said that form extensions were there, but yet you go back to your office and you don't see that little icon that Dan's pointing to. Well, that doesn't mean that your organization doesn't have it. It just means that Tom didn't have access to it. So that's why I say that in development, there should be no security set up to users, because while in production you may want to restrict certain people from doing things, in development, in my opinion, you should have users be able to experiment and see exactly what they can do, because not belittling development and IT by any means, and I apologize if you're going to take this the wrong way, but the user community, they're the ones understanding what they need to do their job. They're looking to IT to help be that support mechanism to get them do the job to the best of their ability. And these are what these UDOs are letting people do.
So what I'm just messing around with. This is what I kind of was talking about. So maybe I've got things, user reserved dates and fields and codes or something I wanted to capture for, oh, I did it in the wrong one. Sorry, did it in the form. My bad. Let's undo that. Try that again. So you got to pay attention. I was not paying attention there. I put them on the form, which I meant to do the detail, header of the detail. I still want to do, let's see, I want to do user reserve stuff, number, maybe code, and maybe a date. Yeah, I'll bring them all over. So just by having them in there, and again, these could be anything. It could be, a code saying, yes, these are good order, or hold the order, or whatever the case. You could use them for whatever. Right? Everyone uses their user reserves for whatever they want. So, but you can now have them there. And that just took me 3 seconds to do versus, again, getting approval and all this other stuff to get them all up in there. So yes, you should still have approval on some things, but I mean, in general, if you need something, you need to capture something, you can certainly do that at a moment's notice. It's there. So this is an inside sales or entry. So I'm actually in the detail screen. I could be entering stuff. I could have that, have these things up front, and I can pound in what I need.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just that easy, just that simple. I mean, honestly, it's again, I just wish they had this years ago.
Yeah. And to your point, Dan, with this example you just showed them, again, that's the understanding of the type of form that you're using, right? So you could see by the header, right? It says sales order detail revisions. Well, that's an actual application screen, whereas the other one I had said inquiry, or the one we started with said inquiry, right? So that's that fine browse form. But, this is making the common Joe a pseudo programmer, and Dan hasn't even gotten to show you he's been doing some of it, but these fields, you can take fields away, you could combine tabs so you have only one tab versus 4. There's so many different things you can do now, and that's why when Dan turns it back over to me, you can see how robust all of this is. Dan and his group offer you a UXOne training class
Yes.
where his
There you
folks.
go, Beck.
Oh, well, thank you, Dan.
Welcome.
That's nice of you to tell me right then and there. Okay.
Sorry.
All right. No, that's quite all right. Let me get back to where I need to be then.
Yeah, well,
So you'll
Marty,
see my screen.
and while you're doing that, Marty, yes, you can rename the field as you add them. You can also again rename them using the form personalization.
Yeah.
As well. So
Now, think that in and of itself, Dan,
yeah.
remember to change the name of a field, you always had to go to IT and, hey, can you change this? And they would say, well, if I change it, it's going to be changed everywhere. Well, guess what? Now it's not. Now it's just changed where you change it, So it's amazing. But to the point that I was making, I talked to you about orchestrations and I talked to you about genome, which are very important because they all work hand in hand. We offer discounted pricing now if you want to turn around and have us talk to you about how customizations can be replaced with orchestrations, how customizations can be replaced with normal user-defined objects. And if you want, we can also help manage your orchestrations. But the one I wanted to show you was this one. Now, we're only talking form extension, form personalization. But you have searches, you have compose pages, Cafe One, you have all these other things that work hand in hand. Dan and his group will provide you with a training where you can actually say to Dan, well, Dan, okay, great. I want to go to the purchase order screen and I want to be able to see blah, 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 blah on the purchase order screen. And you could give him examples of what you want him to help you develop. And he'll do that for you in your group. So a lot, Dan and I were more than willing. If you go back to your organization today and say to your organization, you know what, I was on this webinar and they were showing me stuff that's I didn't know we could do. And if your company says, well, geez, can we see it? Dan and I would be more than happy to do a one-off for you and your organization, right? So if you want to set this same kind of thing up, Dan and I will be more than willing to do that for you. The other thing is we have pre-recorded webcasts that you can go out and you can see prior webcasts. Dan and I did one on queries, watch lists, searches, Cafe One. You can go out and you can see all of those. We have a newsletter you can subscribe to where we give you tips and tricks and how to do other things. Our resource center, multimedia, YouTube, channel. We have YouTube videos out there. Dan and I conduct a workshop, an actual hands-on workshop where we'll give you examples. We'll give you a manual. You sit there and you can go through and in our lab, develop all of these things on your own. So let's say you're not on tools 9252. Let's say you're only on tools 9.1 and don't have some of these things. Attend one of our workshops and you can go ahead and do that. We have a blog yourself. We have turnaround, and I talked about the fact that we have ERP talk where you can, ask a question, get a human to give you an answer. We also have various social media accounts that you can join us on. So again, reach out to us, see what's going on. Dan, I think we have a couple more questions out there, Dan. Yeah, maybe.
I think you answered this one. Selecting a business view. What if the field is not in the business view?
Yep, we answered that one.
Okay. I think we got everything else. I think production
All right.
changes. Form exchange the same app. We talked about that one.
Yeah.
The field. I think we're good. I think we got them all.
So don't forget, when you saw the lobby, as soon as you hang up, you're going to
Can you show the slide with the orchestrator cost again?
Show that one again. Okay.
Yeah, the nice thing about the orchestrator one, by the way, there's two things there. One is a planning engagement, and this is generally even more than the $4,000. It's because we go in there, we make sure everything's all set for orchestrator. Make sure all your I's are dotted, T's are crossed in there, and everything's set up correctly. Then the other half of this is the 20 hours per month of service to help build the orchestrators slow and steady. And I'll tell you, we've got a few people that are running these, and they, first they started off like gangbusters and they sucked up the 20 hours pretty quick. Now they're actually thinking it through, and we're slowly moving through these orchestrations. They're doing really a great job with it. It's really pretty good.
And for those of you that are not truly familiar, Orchestrator is going to be the integration mechanism of choice for JD Edwards. So it's a very robust product, and along with orchestration are notifications, so that once an orchestration runs and something happens, it can shoot a notification off, or it could submit another batch job. It could pass parameters to other things. It's truly making JD Edwards a enterprise solution that has machine capability and augmented intelligence built right in. So, don't think of orchestration just as integration. Orchestration might be that if you enter that transfer order and there's a certain condition that happens, go out and launch another application and do something else. So, as I was saying, when you exit, you will get a questionnaire. If you fill out that questionnaire, you'll be able to get inserted into a drawing for a $50 Amazon card. The nice part about it is you can sign up and fill out the survey to get input into the drawing. The bad news is if you don't do it, Dan and I are going to win. So
yeah, I love me an Amazon card, FYI.
Listen, the other thing is, I don't believe I have a screen that shouts out our emails, but again, you can see the email right down there where there should be an email address down there at the bottom of the screen, or you can just enter, tom.gabriel@getgsi.com. So our email addresses are basically firstname.lastname@getgsi.com. So unless there's anything else, Dan,
I think
any more questions out there or no?
The question I don't know the answer to, but it was a question: can Orchestrator be used as a type of ETL tool? I think that's yes, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, the answer to that is definitely.
Okay.
The answer is yes.
Okay.
And again, what we offer, one of the other things outside of this orchestration, the workshop and managed services, we also offer a service where we'll come in and talk to you about the benefits of orchestration. We'll actually engage you, it's a fee-based thing, but we'll do an evaluation of the areas where orchestration can help and how you can leverage orchestrations in your organization. So similar to a business value assessment where we look at your applications and how you're using them, and our architecture assessments where we look at your systems, we also have an orchestration assessment where we can actually come in there and say to you, what would you need to do architecturally to use it to the best of its ability? And how can you use it in your organization, and what's your ROI? So as a partner, we offer a lot of these services. And as I said, just reach out to us and we'll be able to do that for you. All right. Is that it, Danny?
I believe so. I don't see any other questions. I think we're good.
All right.
Again, thanks everybody for showing up and being here today. If you want a hands-on of this, we do that usually once a month. I think the next one's in mid-March, I think. But yeah, check with getgsi.com and get yourself booked on those. They're really pretty handy, and especially if this is the first time you got to play around with this, it's fun to actually play with it. And then you can take it back to your group and say, hey, either we need to do training or you got to turn this stuff on, whatever you want. So it's probably one of the most rewarding classes I've ever had to deal with. It's because the results are right there in your face. If they're not right, change it. So it's pretty neat.
It's like the commercial on TV when you go to the doctor. Don't be afraid to ask the question. There's, like we say, there's no such thing as a dumb question. So with that, thanks everybody. Dan, as always, thank you, Dan.
Thank you, everybody.
We'll see you the next time around.
You bet. See you guys.
Bye-bye. All right, bye-bye.